Welcome to the Coffee with Karen podcast, a weekly chat show discussing everything from holistic health to current affairs from a mental, physical, and spiritual perspective. Get your weekly cup of positivity with a sprinkling of woo-woo.
So, welcome to the show. Today is Thursday. This is going out on Mintwave Radio. You can simply ask Alexa or go to the website above, mintwave-radio.com. If this is via podcast, if you go to the same website, you will be able to download the app for Apple and Android. And this is for our complete podcast network. So feel free to subscribe to any of the podcasts on our platform, follow or leave a comment. Now, today's episode is 132. And today we have Paula Yoles, who is a body, mind, food freedom coach. And we're going to be talking about helping women end emotional eating by widening their capacity to feel their feelings, including joy. I'm your host, Karen Roberts, helping coaches and therapists to get their message heard to the people who need it. Now, Paula is the owner of Body, Mind, Food Freedom and the founder of the End Emotional Eating with Ease method. Paula empowers women to end emotional eating. The women she works with know that it's not really about the food, and they are ready to do some deeper, soulful work so that they can step out of this exhausting struggle and step into deeper self-love while feeling fabulous in a body just right for her. Live a joyous life and having a lasting, peaceful relationship with food. So, welcome to the show, Paula.
Thank you so much, Karen, for having me and for the wonderful introduction. So glad to be here.
Well, so would you like to first of all share with the audience a little bit more about your background, your story, how you came to be doing what you're doing now?
Sure, I'm happy to share that. So I used to be an emotional eater myself. So that was the start of my journey into then leading into being a coach. But it was not my intention when I started to make my transformation. I just wanted to feel better. My emotional eating had started in my childhood around 6th grade. That's around 12 years old, because I'm not sure if it's exactly the same in England.
Yeah.
So the grade and the age, but it was around 12 years old. And I just didn't have the support I needed for different things, and food I had available in my house. So I was blessed with that, but it also became a tool to soothe myself. And as time went on, I started getting heavier and weight putting on, and I started having chronic health challenges like digestive issue challenges from the extra weight and the types of foods I was eating, and stuffing down one's emotions literally can also cause health challenges and problems, which people don't always make that connection. I certainly didn't. And then it got to a point where it just kept rolling, and into my early 30s, I was a mom by that time. And I realized I was like, I'm not being the kind of mom I want to be. I was also an elementary school teacher at the time. And I was just putting one foot in front of the other, not really enjoying life. I didn't have that joy. I loved being a mom, and I also wasn't really enjoying myself. And I realized this is going to impact my son. And also I was tired of being stuck in the food cycle. I'd come home from work, grab a spoon, go to the freezer and pull my best friend Ben and Jerry's out. And, and I'd sort of go into like a coma or a trance and eat one spoonful after another, going over things that I felt bad about from my day or from a week ago, and just beating myself up negatively, which a lot of emotional eaters do, whole shame and blame. And then I'd hear thunk because my spoon hit the bottom of the container. And I'd sort of wake up and be like, on a whole other level of shame and blame, be like, you promised yourself you won't do it again. You did it again. You wouldn't do it. You did it. What are you doing? What is wrong with you? And just on and on. So luckily, a friend on a walk with me took a risk, and she said, Paula, I'm really worried about you. You're putting on more and more weight, and you seem more and more unhappy, and I'm worried about you. And for me, in that moment in time, like everything sort of froze in my brain, and I was scared, and I didn't know what to do because I'd been pretending that things were okay. I didn't think people realized what was going on for me. Obviously, my close friend did. And instead of functioning and saying, "No, no, I'm fine." You know, like when you walk by somebody, they're like, "Hi, how are you?" And you're like, "Oh, fine," but you're having like the most miserable day. Like I could have done that, but instead I paused and I said, "I don't want to keep going on like this. I don't want to keep in this food struggle. I don't like that I'm so heavy." And I thought it was about the food then. I didn't really kind of have the bigger picture. And I told her, "You're right, and I don't know what to do." She didn't have the answer either. But that was my first yes to me. That's what I call it. Like I was like, I'm being honest and I'm claiming this. And a few weeks later, a different friend was in a course called the Healers Program. The course doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately, and they needed practice clients. I was like, okay, I'll try it. I knew it had something to do with food, but didn't quite know, the whole thing. And I went, and her mentor was going around from group to group, and he knew a lot about me with knowing nothing about me. And I was like, whatever this man can do, I'm in. And I signed up for his 2-year program, and I that's where I started diving into looking at things from my past that were showing up in my present that were emotionally bogging me down, and doing that inner self growth so that I could step out of my patterns and my food, really, using food as my soother. And it was a journey. It took like a good solid year, and like I said, I worked with him for 2 years. But in this program, I didn't go into the program with any intentions of becoming a coach. I just wanted to feel better. I wanted to feel better physically and emotionally, and he held that container. And from there, people started seeing my changes and started asking me questions around health and wellness, and that's how it sort of led into becoming a coach to help people end emotional eating.
Wow. But what made you? You say you didn't start out that way. I mean, I suppose it's a natural next step when you found a solution to something. It's like you want to go and tell everybody that it's okay, you can solve this. So, but why? Why are you now on a mission to help women and in emotional eating?
So underneath all of it, sort of the bigger mission is part of it was like part of it, I think the motivator was people saw me as a resource, and then I started seeing myself as a resource and expert around this. And then the other piece is as an elementary school teacher, when I was doing that, I was seeing food changing over the years as to what was showing up in kids' lunch boxes, what was being served to them by school, and how it was impacting them on a daily basis. And so my sort of secret mission, that's not really a secret, but it's like the underlying motivation is I know that if the adult, and in this case the woman in the house, is having a healthier relationship with food and most importantly herself, it's going to trickle out to the rest of the household. And that is what is my bigger mission, is that it trickles down this emotional wellness and food wellness. My motto is you deserve to eat healthy, you deserve to think healthy. And I know if it trickles down to the children, to our next generation, it's going to raise us up as they grow up.
Love that. Yeah, deal. I mean, this is it with all these things. If we could help the children now, they're the adults of tomorrow. I mean, it just deals with everything in one generation rather than it becoming a habitual pattern for generations to come, because otherwise that is what's going to happen, isn't it? Because, like you
Yeah.
say, things have changed.
Yeah.
When I was in primary school, we had, although, it wasn't very tasty, but it was far healthier foods than the food choices that the kids now, the options that are there. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So
And go ahead.
all I was going to say was, it, like you say, it's not just about the food. It's about the link with our emotions and how we feel. And so mindset is massive, right? But I suppose the two come together. But are you saying that, deal with this and then the food changes will sort of happen by
Yes,
themselves?
that's well, it doesn't necessarily just happen by itself, but most people, not everybody, but most people and the women that work with me, they show up, they pretty much know what healthy eating is. They know I should be eating more vegetables and I shouldn't be eating the cookies as much. And not that you can have it at all, but the quantity that they're having, that type of thing. So they know that, but it's the emotional piece that's getting in the way. So yes, that's the way in, is that you do the emotional work. Like when people saw me losing weight and transforming, and I also was feeling better emotionally, so I was like literally glowing because I was just feeling so good emotionally. It's like, when you're like really happy about something, you're like sort of like dancing around, like people can feel that. So people felt it. Well, people come up to me, they're like, what are you doing? Because they want to know how I was losing the weight. And I'm like, well, I'm doing a lot of inner self growth and making tiny changes to my eating. And it was slow, tiny changes to the eating. Whereas, like, what do most people do? A diet. Because that's what we're told to do. You want to lose weight? Go on a diet, go on the latest diet, whatever it is. Well, only 3% of people who go on a diet then sustain the weight loss, because diets aren't lifestyles. Diet is supposed to be for a short period of time. It's not a sustainable way to eat. So yeah, and again, you haven't done the emotional work usually when you're doing a diet. It's sort of like willpower it. And so it's really the emotional piece. If you want to make long-term change to your relationship with food, if food's ruling your world, yeah, that's what I see as the missing piece, is
Mm.
to really,
Yeah, I mean, I would totally agree. But it's so funny when people say, "Oh, that diet didn't work because they regained the weight." It's like, the diet worked. They didn't change this because we are all habitual beings. We have these programs that are running. So if you're going to resort back to your sort of default, although it's a false default, your previous default setting. And if that's what you'd been doing to gain the weight, of course you're going to go. I mean, it just makes sense, right? Of
yeah,
course you're going to go back, because if you're going to go back to how you were eating before, well, that lifestyle got you to where you needed to go on a diet. So it's this constant cycle if you don't deal with the mindset part of it. So
yeah,
how do you work? How do you help people change that mindset? If do you have any top
so
tips that you can give people?
I can give some tips, and it's not like a tip fixer type of thing. So, I mean, the thing is people who stress eat, overeat, nighttime snacking, binge eating, or emotional eating, like whatever label you want to use it. If you're doing that, first of all, I want you to know it's not your fault. That's one tip. It's not your fault. It has to do with the patterns and habits and routines and stressful situations that you grew up with, that literally got seared in your brain, got seared in your cells, got seared in your energy, because our brains are trying to keep us safe. Like, that's its job, to keep us safe. Well, that means sometimes we take on mechanisms, like I took on the mechanisms of, I didn't want to feel my feelings. And I took on, because of situations when I was growing up, and I took on the mechanism eating to soothe myself, because we need to feel better somehow. And so that's tip one, is it's not your fault. And tip two is somehow find yourself support to figure out the things in the past. And this is the work I do with the women. We work on the things from your past without having to go into the like deep, dark things you don't want to go into. I actually don't remember a lot of my childhood, but I still was able to release things and honor things. And that's what it's about. It's about honoring things that you are living in this pattern around food, around the shaming and blaming, or thinking you're not enough, or you're not good enough, or you're not the best mom you could be, or dad, or, whatever, or human on any level. And like honoring your inner dialogue that you're having with yourself and releasing it, and then letting your brain get retrained into more compassion for yourself, helping yourself feel all the different levels of feelings, and having other ways to soothe yourself that are healthy, that aren't using food. So, not going to another vice necessarily. So,
Yep, great tips, because I suppose, in our societies, we have been conditioned to see food as a treat. Birthdays, oh, you get jelly and ice cream. Oh, when it's your birthday, you're going to get a lovely birthday cake, or you might get a chocolate fountain, or you might get this and you might get that stuff that you wouldn't tend to eat. I mean, years ago, we would never have those kind of desserts. It really was treat time. But I suppose that in and of itself is creating a pathway to see it as, oh, it's a reward for being good, or it's a reward for doing well at school. It's a reward. And
and
that
also,
is,
our brains got pattern, a lot of us, around like sort of like the classic like grandma thing, like, oh, you scraped your knee, here, have a cookie. Oh, you're set,
yes.
you had a fight with your friend, oh, have some ice cream pop or whatever. So yeah,
Yeah. So we're going to connect that on a subconscious level as, it's a reward system. So you're sharing there is, you're saying that, you've got to switch, you choose, there are other rewards, a nice hot bath, if you're a mum with young children, even to take time out to have a nice relaxing bath that's a treat in and of itself. So that could be switched over, right? So even, I suppose, I don't know, what are some other rewards people could think about as a replacement? I suppose a walk in the
yeah,
park or somewhere beautiful, or
yeah, it could be something like that, but it's not even, also like, it doesn't even, like, even just helping not associate that we have to reward ourselves is a whole other level of
yeah.
it too. But doing things like, how it's around the, like, when tricky feelings come up, or that feeling of I deserve reward, what's something you could do, like something easy, like if you like dancing, like I like dancing, I could put on a song. Even if I had, my son's 21, so he's not living with me, but when he was little, I could put on a song with him and we could dance, for 2 minutes, and I could soothe myself that way because I'm moving my body, I'm getting in my body. If you like doing some kind of, like, maybe you like journaling, or you like doing artwork, or maybe you're a runner, like, what are the things you already enjoy doing, and how could you make them happen? And then there's just a piece of learning how to lean into your feelings, the hard ones especially, and speaking our truths. As women, we are often trained to not speak our truth. And that is especially true for emotional eating women, that they really shut down their truths to make it through their childhood or something when they got older, in a way, and to learn how to speak your truth and not be in this panic or fight or flight mode around what other people are going to think about you. And
That's got to be massive, especially in this day of social media. I suppose everyone's putting their best face forward, so
yeah,
is that why you think we tend to shut these down? Because on the face, we've got to, or we feel, because again, it's not true, is it? But it's a perception that we've somehow got caught up in, that we've, to feel successful, we've got to have all our ducks in a row. We've got to have everything, yeah, of course, everything's fine. I've got this going on, that going on, and I'm great.
yeah.
Whereas you might be slightly actually overwhelmed and struggling, but you're not going to share that with the world. So are you saying that, it's okay to be vulnerable? It's okay to to be trust. But like you said right early on about, people ask you, how are you? And you go, yeah, I'm fine, when actually you might be having the worst. Isn't it interesting that that must be totally subconscious, because it's your instant reaction
Right.
to put on this brave face. Not that I suppose the flip side of it, the person asking the question may not really be wanting you to tell
Right.
them.
Right. But sometimes it's a close friend or family member and you say you're fine when you're not too. So
Yes.
yes. So
So it's
yeah,
okay. It's okay
okay
to
to be
admit that if you're,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And I think, there are certain places and times where obviously it's not necessarily like if you're in the middle of like a staff meeting or something, you don't want to be
Have a
necessarily right.
breakdown.
Right. But with your friends and, family, like if it's a safe, family member, I'm assuming with your friends, you're picking people who are safe friends to be with, then yeah, be open and be vulnerable and share what's going on and actually trust that they can hold the space for you to share and or find a community that can do that if you don't have that in your life or find some coach or a therapist or somebody. My personal experience and a lot of my clients is that I've done therapy and on and off over the years, and it's powerful, and it hadn't helped me with my emotional eating. So, sometimes it really needs to be somebody who's been there and understands and has the tools to support you around it. But some therapists can do that. So you have to find the right fit for you, is the thing. Like I found the right fit for me, and like he wasn't an emotional eating coach. That wasn't his thing. His thing was what's called the Healers Program. His thing was around helping people heal their emotional stuff and make changes to their food so they could be as healthy as possible.
But there you go. That's proof, isn't it, in and of itself, that when you do heal this stuff, all the other things will come in line. So whether that's your business, whether that's your relationships, whether that's your health, whether that's your relationship with food. So it all starts with you.
That's right. Yeah.
Go
And
within and heal.
because you're the person you spend the most time with. So, right?
Yeah.
And
So be kind also, be kind, because you're right. You're the one that, you don't get a break, do you? You don't,
no, you
you
don't get a
don't get a
break
break
from
with
yourself.
yourself.
You don't get a break with yourself, and you don't get a break from your inner dialogue. Like we all
And
have
quite
this.
often it can be negative again, isn't it?
Mhm.
Where does this come from? That
Eh,
we
oh,
tend to be harsher on ourselves than we would never dream of speaking to a friend or even an enemy in some of the ways that we actually speak to ourselves.
yeah.
And who is that damaging? That's
Yeah,
damaging
yeah,
us.
and I really believe a lot of it came from when we were younger, and it's not always our families. It could also be like kids in the neighborhood or your community, or if you were part of like a church or a synagogue or teachers. Like, even though I was an elementary school teacher, I'm sure at sometime over the years there's some kid who I made feel bad about something, and you just, as a child, you really take those things in, and then you start putting up walls to protect yourself, and you take it in, and really that's, I think, a lot of where that negative inner dialogue just starts growing and growing and growing. And but the great thing is we can actually change it. We can find compassion for ourselves. We can find ways to interrupt those patterns, and this is a big piece of what I work on with my clients is like we're interrupting the patterns, we're honoring them, we're getting that dialogue to change that's inside your head, which then, like you said, it just spreads out to the other parts of your life, including your relationship with food, your relationship with your body. So many of the women I work with, they never look in the mirror below their shoulders. They have to look in the mirror to brush their hair. But beyond that, it's like they can't be present with their body. And it's you, it's who you are. And you deserve to be connected to your body and be okay with it and, enjoy it
Mm.
no matter what size it is. And I just, that's the piece, is connect to yourself somehow. And it's not like a quick fix. It's not like where you like open the diet book and you read the book and you know to do this, and this, and you're on the diet. This is a process of feeling what's going on, honoring your body, honoring your thoughts, stepping into your power, releasing things that are literally stuck in your body. Weight can stay on the body energetically. Somebody could eat a super healthy diet, the right portion sizes, quote unquote, right, because it's different for everybody. I don't want to, there's not one way to, and that's right for your body. And the weight could still stay on because energetically your body could be protecting you around emotional things.
Yeah. So
And
it thinks it's helping you because you're holding on to it, but it's because of this underlying issues. And it's fascinating. It's such a fascinating subject that, and I think people are coming to the conclusion that this link between the mental and the physical, there's so much talk about mental health. We now know scientifically that these, if you're feeling bad, there will be physiological reactions going on in the body, just like, I think you mentioned stress earlier. And I think that's a massive, massive part of it,
yes,
because we know that when cortisol is in the system, then all the energy goes to the extremities. So there's no time. This is not the time to burn fat as a fuel. It's going to hold on to everything. And that, so now I think, science has now proven this aspect that it will trigger hormonal responses. But the woo-woo part, the spiritual part, where does that fit in with all of this? Because we know
yes,
that it's the whole person, not just the mental and the physical. There is a third part here.
yeah, you got it. That's right. So it's right. Like when I say connecting to yourself, that's the woo woo spiritual part. Because what does that even mean? Like connect to yourself, right? Like you're using food to stuff yourself down, to stuff your truths and your feelings down. So stepping into connecting to yourself also means connecting to God, source, spirit, or whatever you've made. For some people, it's nature. What brings you connection to yourself and then allows you to connect to others. That's to me sort of the woo woo part. And the other woo woo part is trusting that it's possible, that you can make change happen. Because when you've been stuck in the diet cycle for years and decades, even, like you lose your hope, you lose your trust. And so you have to take the woo woo leap that it's possible. And actually, somebody a couple weeks ago on my personal Facebook page, I put in the question, what is your relationship to the word woo woo? Because I was just kind of curious what people said. And one person put in, she said, I like the word because I believe woo woo is backed by science. And I loved that perspective of it because I think that's true. Like we now know science wise, like people say like, like when you love somebody, you feel it in your heart. That sounds so woo woo. But we actually now know that energetically, your heart has an energy field around it that interacts with other people's energy fields when you're near them. So that's the science behind the woo woo of like feeling love
Yeah.
in your heart, right? So that's
I
the
think it's really exciting times now because of that. Whereas before, and even this show, this started over 2 years ago now, coming up to 2.5. And the idea of it's a coffee with Karen, a cup of positivity with just a sprinkling of woo woo, because some people would be just switched off if we're going to go down that
Mhm.
road. I don't even like using the word woo-woo because to me, it's all woo-woo. We just call it mental, physical, and spiritual, but actually, altogether, the whole thing is it's all woo-woo.
Right.
But over the years, and thanks to the people like Joe Dispenza who are bringing that science into it and now are proving, showing the brain and showing the difference of what's going on and the energy in a room when people are connecting with themselves and they are going within, which is awesome, because to the naysayers, it's like, now we have scientific proof that this is what it is. And do you feel that sort of more and more people are now open to it? Yeah, you can't just look at just the physical, the diet, the exercise regime that you're not going to stick to if you don't get that sorted.
Yeah.
Do
I
you think that people are
yeah,
more open?
I think people are getting more and more open, definitely. And there are some people who aren't, and they're never going to be, and that's okay.
Yes, it's their journey.
It's their journey, and I'm not their person, So right.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, like some of my friends, there's certain things we don't really talk about because it's just not, So it's the same type of
That's all
thing.
right. My friends think I'm crazy.
But I
But
think,
that's okay.
but yeah, but I do agree with you. I think people are opening more to it, and just the whole fact that like people are more open to mindfulness and meditation, and all that it's like meditation and mindfulness are sort of mainstream now, right? Like
Yeah.
yeah, like 5-6 years
And
ago.
I suppose you only know through the experience of it. So people can hear all day long that this is good for you and mindset, you change your mindset until they do it, not read a book about doing it, not listen to a podcast about doing it, not they actually get in touch with you and do it.
Yeah.
That's when the proof is in the pudding, because you can only really understand it when you totally own it and
Mhm.
experience the change, even if, okay, it's not going to happen overnight, but even how it changes how you feel,
Yep.
then it's the knowing that if you keep doing this and create a habit of this, you can see then how things are going to change.
Yep.
So,
That was my experience with sugar, right?
oh,
Because when I was in the healers program for that 2 years, one of the I ate a lot of sugar. Like I told you, Ben and Jerry's was my best friend. So, and chocolate, and I still have a wonderful relationship with chocolate, but I don't eat ice cream anymore just because my stomach doesn't do well with dairy. But it doesn't rule my world like it used to. But anyways, he had me slowly get off sugar because he understood the impact of it. I didn't, but and we all know sugar is not really healthy for us. So slowly over, I'd say 6 to 8 months, it took me to get off the sugar because it's slow. And that's the thing, like slow and
brilliant.
steady. And at a certain point, I was changing lots of things. I was doing all that emotional work. So like I couldn't tell what was what. But a couple months later, I went back on sugar because I got stressed about something and it was one of my go-tos, and I was eating sugar for a number of days in a row, and my negative mind chatter came back and my negative
Ah,
self-blaming came back, but I didn't make the connection yet. And then I got myself back off sugar, and then X amount of time later, same thing, ended up back on sugar with a stressful experience and the negative mind chatter. And that's when I put it together. I was like, oh
ah,
my goodness. Like, and I really feel like people can't understand it until they get
do it.
themselves. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
So it's only in that. And isn't it interesting? Because I feel the same whenever I've done certain things, like when people tell you, I don't know, you should be taking that because that's going to help with this. And you might take it, but you don't know whether it's actually doing any good, if it's something that's just going on a cellular level or something. And then you could stop, and then go back, and that's when you realize, because
Mhm.
we get complacent, don't we, and we get used to things, so sometimes we don't realize how good we've been feeling with this new regime, and it's only when we change it back that we notice, oh yeah, I did feel a lot better on that. And I suppose that inner real knowing, not just attempting to trust what you've been told, that this is wonderful. And that's when you've got it, when you know personally yourself through your own experience. That's when you're going to change it. And like you say, it might not happen the first time. Look, trust me, I've been down that road before. I thought I've got it discussed and come off sugar, and then I'm switched, because it's a journey and we've got so much programming. And yes, sugar's more addictive than cocaine. I mean, it's just, sugar is. I do see it as, we didn't have it, centuries back, right? Or we didn't have it in the way that it is, wherever you go and fill up for petrol, and it's just there tempting you in front of you, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And it's in, like, because, 100 years ago, sugar cane existed, but it was a conscious, here's the sugar cane and you're using it in a certain way. It wasn't in
everything, all the sauces and the soups and the.
But I have plenty to eat without eating white sugar. I do eat maple syrup and honey. That's okay for me and my brain and my body, not for everybody. But I don't feel like I'm deprived, and that's the other piece. A lot of women, and I would probably say men too, need help with not feeling deprived when you are choosing to not eat certain foods.
Yes. So that makes sense. It's when it's a slower process and you're understanding yourself. I mean, know thyself, right? So we know that, we've got to create habits. So one of the things that can help with creating the habit is creating some kind of, like, I call it a morning ritual, or, you've really got to focus on self-care. So for you, what is your favorite self-care or self-love or ritual that you can practice?
So I have a variety of them right now, because it's starting, where I live in Massachusetts, the United States, starting to be spring, so it's getting to be warmer. I am getting myself outside first thing. No phone, nothing. Like, don't look at it. Throw on my clothes, even though it's not super warm. I still have to wear layers and a winter jacket and a hat and gloves, because it's first thing in the morning. But just get outside, move my body, be in the sunlight, and hear the birds, and just have some time for myself to move my body. So, but when it's like, and then I have some other things, but when it's winter and it's like dead dark when I wake up, that is not happening. So I usually do this at some point during my day, but in the winter I start with some meditation and some journaling. And again, and that's the beautiful thing, like, those things can be short. You could do them for 5 minutes. It's not like you have to do it for a full hour. I couldn't meditate when I first started trying to end emotional eating, because I couldn't be in my brain in that way. It's something new, and it's about 16 years now since I've went through my transformation, and meditation just started coming really into my life in the past 2 years, because I couldn't sit with myself at that level in my brain. So it might not work for you, but it's things that just fill your soul, nurture you. So for me, it's moving my body, doing some meditation, and then I'm trained in what's called empowerment chakra tapping. So it's using your acupuncture points and honoring things that are coming up emotionally and with your younger self. And what was the other piece? Yeah. So I do some of that usually every morning too, where I'm
excellent. And then when you get into that becomes that morning ritual, and it's that consistency, isn't it? Of doing something daily. Like you say, these things, you're not gonna drop 2 stone because you've just sat there and meditated. You're never gonna eat sugar again. I mean, we're all looking for that quick fix, which is a myth, because it's never going to exist ever.
Yeah.
I don't believe it's ever going to exist.
I agree. It's a process and journey. And like, when I started going through my transformation in my early 30s, and my mom was like, oh yeah, I did that self-growth thing in my early 30s too. Like, and then like she was done. I'm like, no, I'm not 52. No, this is my lifetime. Like, I have to keep because I could slide back if I get into a place where I'm in stress for weeks. I could, if I didn't have my tools and my morning routine's part of it, I could slide back into emotional eating because that's my vice,
But
right?
we're,
So,
we're all going to do that. We have to eat food every day. We
yep.
have to drink water every day. So why anybody would think that if you're going to do something like this, you haven't got to do that every day. It's daily practice, just like you need the air to breathe, you need the water to drink, you need food to eat, you need to fill your mind with
Yep.
positivity and just be just I suppose we're in this, it's such an action oriented world. We feel like we got to do. We
Right.
got, nothing, we're not being successful. We're not doing what, if we're not doing.
Doing. And I think part of social media is part of that too, because it's a constant, and technology, right? It's constant. And this is part of what I saw with just in elementary school teaching too, is that when you're watching even TV show, like it's constant change. It's constant quick, 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 quick. And so we're getting constant stimulation. And so then when we're not even on technology, our bodies are wanting constant stimulation. Food can be a stimulation. So yeah, I just think you're right. It's like it's a lifetime habit. And your morning routine doesn't have to be like hours. It can be 10 minutes, But I would just say actually to anybody, like if you could pick amount of time that you don't get on your phone in the morning, like you don't look at it. Maybe you use it as an alarm. Okay, if that's what you do, you do. But I would say maybe you can get a different kind of regular old fashioned clock. But if that's your alarm, fine, turn it off and then pick amount of time. Like maybe you start with 15 minutes. I'm not going to get on my phone. And for 15 minutes, and then you can expand it to half hour because you'll be surprised at how much it impacts you. And I know that doesn't necessarily connect to food, but it connects to the mindset. And I just think it's not, and I'm guilty too. Like I have to work on it. It's like I have to
Me
really be
too.
disciplined with myself around it.
Me
But
too. Me too. But like you say, it takes practice, and I, like everyone else, can get complacent, and I can, and then all of a sudden I think, I haven't been meditating first thing. I've got into the habit of recheck. But when you're aware, it's easier to catch yourself before you've got too far in. So yeah, it's a journey. So you say you've had your transformation that's been 16 years. How long have you been doing this, actually helping other women
mm,
with this?
about 7 years now. And I actually started out in gut health at the beginning of that. I was helping women with gut health because that was part of my challenge and change. And then as time went on, I realized I was like, I'm really like working with the emotional aspect of it. And when that happens, then the food changes happen, the gut health is going to improve. So,
It's a knock-on effect. Love it.
yeah.
So as a coach with your business, how many hours a day do you spend on your business? Would you say it now?
It varies on the day. I mean, to me, I'm working pretty much as a full-time job. So, each day, I would say each day, 5 to 6 hours, working on it. Yeah.
But
It's
you're
a relationship that I'm figuring out with myself too. And I'm just like, okay, well, we're starting with going outside in the morning. And then
yes.
I realized I actually need to move my body more because I'm not moving. As an online coach, you are entrepreneur, you're at a desk.
Sat in here.
Yeah, yeah, sitting there, right. So, and I don't like using the high. I mean, I have smartphone, but I just use a little battery operated pedometer. Did I say it right? Pedometer, whatever it is. And I was like, I know when I was elementary school teaching, just from getting up and down, walking down the hall, walking to recess, sitting at next to this kid's desk or table, moving over to there. I walked about 7,000 steps just elementary school teaching. And
Right.
then when I started doing this full time and I wore my thing, I was like, I'm walking 2,000 to 3,000 steps in my house, like that's not okay. And I was feeling it in my body. And it's, and then it impacts your emotional wellness too. And so I was like, that's it. I have to start moving my body more and prioritizing it. So I'm trying to move towards walking twice a day. And I'm like, the second one, I might make videos while I'm walking, or I might reply to clients or something, but
Perfect. Yeah.
yeah.
So you're adding it into your routine. So
Hmm.
it's having that flexibility of doing that, but actually focusing on your self-care first. Wonderful.
Yes. Yeah.
And with regards to sort of self-development, what would do you have a favorite self-development or business book,
Oh, that's a good question.
or any of your top, maybe not the
Yeah.
one,
Yeah.
specifically one, but any that really have helped you?
Yeah, that have helped me. Well, there's a book. Oh, what is it? I'm so bad at like titles. I'm like visual. Oh, it's called The Third Door. It's by
Oh,
Alex Bonnier, I think his name is.
the third
And
door.
The
Okay.
Third Door, and it's about this young. He's older now, but he was in college when the story takes place. And he it talks about basically like finding unusual paths into getting what you want. I find it really fascinating, and going after our dreams, and that it might not fit in the traditional sense of it. So I really liked that book because it was his journey around that.
Right.
And
This is why stories are so powerful, isn't it? Hearing people's
yes,
stories,
stories.
because then people can relate to them, because yeah, many do feel like they're stuck and there is no reason for them to be stuck.
Yeah.
Any other of your favorite sort of influencers or
Well, I wanted to share a health and wellness person who was my mentor. His name's Tom Monty, and who I took the healers program with, but I told you he doesn't have that course anymore right now. But he wrote a book that's called Unexpected Recoveries, and it shares practices and things and stories of people who had basically been given diagnoses that you're not going to heal, you're going to die in X amount of time. And it's stories and practices of things you can do to help yourself heal. And you don't have to have a life death sentence for this book to be really, because that never was part of my. And I hope not anytime until I'm like, way in my
yeah.
older years, but it still has lots of great information in it. And it's inspiring to hear like how much our mindset and our habits and routines and practices can transform and heal us on so many levels. So,
100%. 100%. And there you go. Yeah, you don't have to been given a diagnosis. Prevention is better than cure. When we understand this, it's actually, you will have that knowing that, hey, everything is okay. And if something did arise, you know that, okay, I'll just go within and you can heal yourself. So, and with regards to being a coach, there's many coaches out there as our listeners. Do you have any sort of, what are your top three daily frustrations with getting clients and growing your business?
so yeah, I'm the being brave enough to constantly be putting myself out there, like showing up in social media, because I I I love working with my clients, and I know once I'm working with them I can really help them transform. But I have this love-hate relationship with social media, because I need to use it so people know I exist. And I know it's like addictive, and I find myself going in to do something and then I'm like, oh, it's been a half hour and I was scrolling. Yikes.
Ah,
So this is
yes. So the lesson is that I'm hearing is, don't get caught up. Don't start scrolling. Do your stuff
yeah.
and then step
Get away.
away.
Yes. And remember you're even doing your thing, right? So and I don't, and I just, as an elementary school teacher, my clients just showed up. So this is a new, it's a different experience.
Right.
doing it. But I'm working actually with a coach now who's helping me understand more about content creation and how to do it in a way that feels fun and aligned. And
Awesome.
so I'm
And
excited.
that's it, because there's not one way. It's finding the right way for you.
That's right.
Wonderful. So, for the listeners out there, if they can't see your details, that will be below this video if you're watching YouTube, or if you're listening via podcast, you'll have the show notes and Paula's details. But if they're just listening and can't see anything, how do they get in touch with you, or what's your website?
Thank you, Karen. So the best way is I have on Facebook a free group. It's called End Emotional Eating Sisterhood. And in the End Emotional Eating Sisterhood, it's a great community, and I'm sharing tips and strategies and active things around emotional shifts that you can do. And it's just a great way to meet other women who are on the same journey. So that is a great place. And then the other great place is on Instagram, and it's my name. You can find me, Paula Yoles, and that's YOLLES as in Sam. So I'm on Instagram also. And you can connect with me. You can, as I say, slide into my DMs, slide into my text. I'm happy to chat and connect.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time today. It is a fascinating subject, and I too was an emotional eater, and even for somebody that, you know, all my adult life, I didn't have a problem with weight because I was teaching fitness. So I was teaching, I think at one time 23 classes a week. It's a bit
Woo.
crazy. No wonder I burnt out. But when I left the industry, yeah, I was still teaching 17 classes. So it was never really an issue, because I wasn't one of these totally, perfectly healthy. I'm going to admit I wasn't sat there eating. I was eating what I wanted, but I was burning it up at the same time. And then when I stopped and became an online coach in this chair, well, of course I put on weight.
Right.
And then sort of made a conscious effort that, come on, Karen, just because you've lost your accountability of teaching, you best, get your act together, girl. Pull your big girl's pants up and get on with it. And then lockdown happened.
Yeah.
And
Well, that impacted everybody. Yeah.
I totally dipped back, and I was launching a career teaching the benefits of the ketogenic diet for therapeutic purposes, to reverse type 2 diabetes and to promote fasting, but no money in that, because that means people aren't consuming anything, but sort of the health benefits of that. And then it was like, oh, here I am in lockdown, and I'm ordering a bottle of Prosecco a day and eating junk. So
Yeah.
funnily enough, I regained a lot of the weight, because you realize that, yes, stress.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, I mean, the whole world just went through the most traumatic, stressful stretch. So
Crazy, isn't it?
yeah. I
Crazy.
mean,
And it-
I put on weight at the beginning too, because our bodies were just in constant fight or flight, and we were stuck at home, and yeah, it was just like nightmare for everybody. So, but we're coming out of that,
yeah, well, it
and
just goes to show that even when it's not about, even like you said, most of the women that come to you, it's not about knowing what to do. Right? I know what to do. I know what I needed to do. It was the doing it, which is why it is so important, if you really want change, to work with a coach, because what Paula is offering is really to get to the root cause of the problem. And having that kind of support, we all know the stats show that you're going to get much better and quicker results working with somebody that's got your back, that's there to hold you accountable as well, and to guide you through the process, because the whole thing is a process, isn't it?
it is. Thank you, Karen. And I call it loving accountability, just so you know.
Love it, love it, love it. Loving accountability. We all need it. We all
Yeah.
need it. And I knew that I'd lost my my clients were my accountability, I realized, or I suppose
Mm-hmm.
also being paid to turn up.
Yeah.
I suppose I suppose it was never questioned. There was
Right.
never a question to turn. I knew I had to be there at that time and of course you do. All of a sudden,
A drastic change.
I'd lost my mojo. I'd lost my, oh, well, no, they haven't got a class at the time I want it. So what am I going to do? I'd obviously been spoilt for 25 years of having that ability to just sort of, I choose my classes. I'll do what I want, when I want to do it. And all of a sudden I'd lost it and I'd realized I was just like every other one of my previous clients, making excuses as to why I could really go to the gym.
Yep. I know I need accountability too. So like I've had been in 3 vehicle accidents over my life. And so that impacted my body. And then I was hopping down the hallway a number of years ago with a student, and I pulled out my back because I landed wrong in my clogs. Don't hop down the hallway in clogs, everybody. And now I'm at
Great
the point,
tip.
and now I'm at the point where I want to build up my strength, especially my left side's weaker. And so I'm working with somebody local, and he's like, want to come back in 3 weeks? I'm like, no, I need every other week because I need the accountability so that I make sure I do the exercises in between. So
there you go. It's so important because otherwise, like we said right at the beginning about this thing, it needs consistency. Otherwise, of course, we're going to resort back to past habitual patterns.
And I need to hear him saying to me, your body can do this. It's okay. You're not going to get injured by doing this.
Right.
And then helping my brain retrain. Right. Exactly.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well,
thank you, Karen.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Great conversation. So thank you for your time. And so to the listeners, well, have a wonderful weekend. Well, Easter. Have a wonderful Easter.
And Passover.
Okay. And Passover. So yeah, everybody enjoy. And I will be back. I will be back on Monday. So for us over here in the UK, it will be a bank holiday. And I will see you then. So bye for now.
Coffee with Karen podcast, a weekly chat show discussing everything from holistic health to current affairs from a mental, physical and spiritual perspective. Get your weekly cup of positivity with a